Welcome to The Explainer. We're all about breaking down complex and fascinating source material into clear, engaging explainers just like this one.
So, let's start with a wild idea. What if ancient poetry wasn't just about stories and hymns, but was actually a kind of blueprint for physics? Today, we're diving into a really unique source, Vigyan Alok, that makes exactly this claim. It argues that the poetic meters from the ancient Vedas are actually fundamental codes describing the fabric of our universe.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on the core idea of the text. Then, we're going to unpack 4 specific cosmic codes it talks about and explore its claims for how they shape, well, everything, from how particles attract each other to the very matter we see all around us.
Okay, to really wrap our heads around what this source is arguing, we first have to learn its language. Because what it does is it takes a few key Vedic concepts and gives them this radical, almost scientific reinterpretation. And honestly, this is the foundation for everything that follows. So first up, and this is the most important one, is the idea of Chhandas. Now, traditionally, these are just the rhythmic meters of Vedic hymns, the structure of the poetry. But this source says, no, there's something way more profound. They are fundamental energy waves that literally build and organize the cosmos. And it's the same deal with prana. We usually think of this as life force, right? But in this context, it's reimagined as the raw cosmic energy of the entire universe. So if prana is the basic energy, you can think of the chandas as the specific frequencies or waves that this energy contains. So what we have here is basically a Rosetta Stone for this whole theory. The source just systematically translates these ancient spiritual terms into a completely new physical vocabulary. And once you get this one-to-one translation, it's the key that unlocks their entire cosmic model. Okay, so with that new vocabulary in our back pocket, let's see how it actually works. We're going to start with the first cosmic code, Brihati. According to this source, this is the wave that's responsible for the very first step of creation, basically getting things to stick together. You can think of the Brihati wave as a kind of universal superglue. Its whole job is to be extensive and enveloping, to pull separate particles together and get them to combine, and to do it fast. It's the fundamental force in this system that says, hey, don't be alone. And get this, the source gives Brihati a surprisingly detailed job description. It's not just some vague pull, it's credited with boosting a particle's combining capacity, letting it absorb light, and even driving physical processes like evaporation. It's really the foundational force for any interaction. Okay, so Brihati brings particles together. But just smashing things into each other can be pretty messy and chaotic, right? Well, that's where the next code, Pankti, comes into the picture. Its entire purpose is to make sure that this creation process is absolutely flawless. And this whole section of the source is really built around this one central aphorism. It directly equates the Pankti meter with a process called Yajna. But just like before, we have to use the text's very specific definition of Yajna. And this redefinition is massive. In this system, Yajna isn't a religious ritual. It's a physical process of creation. And its #1 defining feature is perfection. The source describes it as continuous, uniform, and completely free of any gaps, defects, or errors. Total perfection. The text then lays out this really clear step-by-step mechanism. It claims that when a particle interacts with 2 Pankti waves, it kicks off this Yajna process. And the result is a creation that expands outwards in a perfectly uniform and completely defect-free way. So we have combination and we have perfection. Now we need some juice. Let's move on to the third code, Trishthup, which the source presents as the wave that injects raw, undiluted power into the system. And the source is super direct about this one. The saying for this meter defines Trishthup with words like ojas, which means vigor, and virium, which means energy. There's really no ambiguity here. This is the wave of pure power. And yeah, the properties tied to this wave are all about intensity. The source describes Trishthup as producing immense strength, incredible light and heat, and a really sharp, penetrating power. It's the engine of motion and is tied directly to Agni, the Vedic element of fire. And this This is where the theory makes its most direct, and you could even say its most audacious link to modern science. It doesn't just stay in the abstract, it actually proposes that these Trishthup waves are what we today call gamma rays, the single most energetic form of light in the entire known universe.
All right, we have attraction, we have perfection, and we have power. But so far, it's all just energy, right? It's not stuff. Our final code, Jagati, is what the source claims takes all of this and gives it a real, tangible, observable form. Now, the last key aphorism connects the Jagati meter to a term called pashu. If you know the traditional meaning, you're probably thinking of animals, but you guessed it, the source has a very different interpretation. Yeah, in this scientific framework, the meaning totally shifts. Pashu here refers to any substance or group of materials that is visible and tangible. Basically, it means all of observable matter, the physical world itself. Jagati, then, is like the grand finale of creation. It's the wave that takes all that abstract groundwork, the attraction, the perfection, the power, and solidifies it into the physical reality that we can actually see and touch. It's what makes the universe show up. So, we've looked at the 4 key codes one by one. Now let's just take a quick step back and see how they're supposed to form a complete 4-stage cosmic assembly line, at least according to Vedic. And here it is, the entire proposed system laid out. You can see the universe being built in this really clear progression. First, Brihati provides the combination. Then, Pankti ensures perfection. That perfect creation gets infused with immense power by Trishthup and is finally given tangible form by Jagati. So the source we've walked through today offers one really fascinating and, you have to admit, pretty unconventional answer to that question. And whether you see it as a literal theory or a powerful metaphor, it leaves us to wonder about all the different languages and codes that we humans have used and are still using to try and write the equation of the universe.